Okay, welcome to an introduction to safety risk management with me, Andy Evans of Metanoia Safety. One of the things that I've tried to do in my time as a safety consultant is to make safety accessible to people. Safety only really works if people are engaged in it. And often people find it difficult to be engaged in something that they don't understand. So over the years, through the training that I've developed, I've tried really hard to develop a framework and a model that allows people access to safety. And I just want to share some of the slides that I use with you now under this title of Introduction to Safety Risk Management. So if I get people in some of my sessions to draw a picture of safety, I'll often say to them, draw me a picture of safety. And people look at me very perplexed. What? How? What? And then they often revert to type and draw traffic cones, or high-vis jackets, or seat belts. And all of those things are to do with safety, but they're not really what the essence of safety is. This model that I'm showing you now here, Gibson's energy model, that was developed in 1961 by Gibson and Haddon added some extra stuff to it in 1980, I think is a really good overview of what safety actually is. It's the essence of safety. So safety is all about preventing victims. We're not having victims, and we've got victims here. Now we know what causes a victim in safety. It's an energy source. So if the energy source hits a person, we then have a victim. All that this model does is say that we put a barrier between those two things. So we have the energy source and a victim, but if we put a barrier in place, we no longer have a victim. And that's what safety is really about. It's just having that simple understanding, that mental model of this is what safety is about. Gibson's energy model is really useful, but perhaps a little bit too simplistic. So what I've developed over the last few years is a slightly updated version that is really incredibly helpful to help your workers and your staff and your leaders understand what safety actually is. So this is the evolution of the barrier model. Now I've called it the barrier model for no other reason than it seemed to make sense, but we can call it whatever we want. At the top of the diagram here, we've got the basic energy model. The barrier model is just the evolution of this. So instead of talking about victims, which isn't a nice thing to do, we talk about outcomes and harm. The harm is the ouch, it's the hurt. The outcome is the thing that happens just before the ouch. On the other side, we don't talk about an energy source, but we talk about hazard and activity. The hazard, we're quite precise what we mean by a hazard. The hazard is the thing that hurts you. And the activity is what the person or the people are doing at the time that exposes them to that hazard. Instead of the barrier, we talk about controls. Now, this model here underneath, the barrier model, you can see how it's evolved from the energy model, but we've just used terminology that makes more sense to people in a safety context. Now what I'm going to do now is add something new. So up until this point, those two models are effectively the same. I'm going to add 3 extra boxes. Now these boxes are incredibly important. And I'm going to label these boxes, and I'm going to label these boxes with the word risk. Now in my experience, the word risk causes no end of problems in safety. One of the reasons is it's very poorly defined and different people interpret its meaning in different ways. In this context, risk is just a thing that exists that is reduced by controls. So as you can see in this model here, to start off with, right next to the hazard and activity, we have a big box of risk. We then put a control in place and it reduces the amount of risk. We then put another control in place and it reduces the risk further. This picture here is the mental model that I want my students to have when it comes to understanding what risk management actually is. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about risk, and I'm just going to show you the next slide. So this slide here, all that I've done here is take away the controls. So we've got no controls in here at all. So we've got our hazard, our activity, our outcome, and our harm. Risk is this thing that exists in the middle. Now, when you talk about risk in safety context, the best way to think of it is to think of risk as a measurement, a bit like distance. Now, if I asked you the question, how far is it? You would look back at me and say, that doesn't make any sense, because to measure a distance, you need 2 points, point A and point B. The same is true with risk. In order to have risk, we need it's the risk of this leading to this. It's the risk of this hazard and activity leading to that outcome and that harm. If we don't know what the outcome and the harm is, there can't be any risk, because we don't have our end point. So thinking of risk in this context as a measurement makes way more sense. So what we shouldn't be doing in safety is talking about it's a risk. We should be talking about it's the risk. And it's the risk of this leading to this. I think that's pretty much where I want to stop for this first session about understanding the concept of risk management. Spend a bit of time reflecting on what I've taught you or what I've spoken to you about. And once you think you've digested it, tune back in for the next module.